So here I've got these beautiful braces made by Stifler Suspension. These will tie in the subframe connectors with the rocker rails. The driver and passenger side both have two pieces, as you can see. I bought these quite a while back, and I decided to get the powder coated finish. I should have just gotten them bare since I'll be undercoating the whole underside of the car anyways. Just gonna save a bunch of masking off and whatnot, but as you saw, I ended up scuffing and cleaning up the ends and putting a coat of weld-through primer on there. I started to coat them entirely, but then realized I was just gonna waste a bunch of weld-through primer doing that since it'll be sanded down and epoxy coated on the outside anyways. It's really just the inside that needs to be sprayed with the weld-through. I'm coating the entire ends just because these end brackets have quite a bit of adjustment to them, so no matter what position they end up getting welded in, the entire inside is going to be well covered. So on the Saleen I have the Maximum Motorsports XL subframe connectors, and for the rocker rails I ended up making my own, and you can go see that in my previous videos, but you can get this whole system, the braces, the subframe connectors, and the rocker rails in one kit. It's called the Fit System. Other than quite a bit of welding, the install is pretty straightforward. They come with a set of instructions, as you see here, that pretty much give you a great guideline for the measurements with regards to all the spacing and whatnot. The reason I went with different parts and whatnot is because the XL subframes are actually longer in length than the subframes they offer, so I like that. And then with the rocker rails, I also wanted to make them longer than what they offer. They offer about a 4-foot rocker rail kit. I ended up making mine 5, and I tied it into the torque box. So my application was slightly different, but these braces should work all the same. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a final mock-up and get these end brackets tacked into their exact spot. And then once they're tacked into place, I'm going to take them to my buddy Tim's place and get him to TIG weld them up for me. TIG welds are just going to look a lot nicer, and while I'm there I'll get him to TIG weld my roll bar. Basically where the roll bar supports meet the main hoop still has to be welded up, so that'll get done, and yeah, that's about it. Time to get started. So to get these mounted, you're going to use the seat bracket support as your reference. Since the seat bracket holes are in a fixed location on every single Mustang, it won't matter what subframe connectors or rocker rails you use with these Stifler's braces because, again, the position is fixed. It should all fit up the same. The one thing that may be different car to car is how low or tall the subframe connectors are that you buy. So to mount the front brace, you're basically just measuring out from the center of the seat bolt for the front brace, and then you do the exact same for the rear brace, and that's it. Alright, so I've got the braces marked and into position, Everything is fitting up really nicely. Next, I'm just going to tack these ends into place, and then they'll come off and get TIG welded. After that, I'm going to hold off on welding them in permanently just because I'm in the process of prepping the underside for undercoating. And with these fixed into place, it'll be really hard to get to some of the seams. The other thing, the braces will also have to be fully painted before they're welded in for good, just because once they're in, it'll be extremely hard to get to some of the bare spots on top of the brace. Alright, so as luck would have it, the rear brace fits almost perfectly underneath the base plate of the roll bar. Like you see here, the middle bar runs directly under the center of the backing plate, so in the most extreme case of a rollover, that brace is going to prevent the main hoop going through the floor pan. There's about a 1-inch gap between the bar and the back plate, so it'll take very little to make a small, gusset connecting the middle bar to the base plate, and that will essentially tie in the main hoop into all this bracing on the underside. It really is the best of both worlds. Like with the main hoop tied into the chassis like that, it's going to be much more structurally secure and way safer rather than just mounting through the floor. And the best part is, it's still super quick and easy to remove the entire roll bar. Alright, so right now I'm just in the middle of doing a bunch of smaller things on my list to get this thing ready for paint. I've been jumping in and out of things, so it's going to be hard for me to get a cohesive video out of this, but I'll just try to film whatever I can and then organize it and compile it in a way that will make sense for a video. So the timeline on this video and future videos may jump around a little bit. Right now I'm working on the floor pan again. There's a few drilled out holes in the floor from self-tapping screws and whatnot. I'm guessing they were there for the fuel lines and battery relocation kit. But for those that don't know, I bought this car as a very bare roller, so all the stuff was already taken out. So I'm just going to plug up all the drilled out holes. I'm leaving the factory holes for the brake lines and the fuel line brackets because I'll be using the OEM Cobra lines. But as far as the rest goes, I'll just fill them in. You can kind of see where I've marked out with a white Sharpie. It's nothing crazy exciting, but needs to be done and it'll be one step closer. So I got the Cobra up on jack stands so I could take a look underneath and see what's going on with the factory fuel lines, brake lines and whatnot. Make sure I don't fill any holes that I need and get rid of the ones I don't need. And just basically look for any differences between the two cars. Make sure there are no surprises down the road after I get it painted and start assembling it.